Welcome to Sexy in Your 60s. This is a space for women 50 and beyond who are choosing to live with vitality, intention, and joy in this chapter of life and the ones ahead of us. I'm your host, Devora Citron, registered nurse, National Board Certified Health and Wellbeing Coach, and Plant Strong advocate. On this podcast, we explore what truly helps women thrive in midlife and beyond through evidence-based health insights, real stories, practical strategies, and the deeper sense of meaning that makes life feel rich and connected. I intentionally chose the title, Sexy in Your 60s. When I use the word sexy, I'm not talking about sexuality or how we're seen. I'm talking about energy, confidence, presence, curiosity, purpose. Sexy is how you feel in your body. Sexy is how you move through the world. Sexy is knowing who you are and choosing how you want to show up. I believe this stage of life isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. Not in your 60s? You're still invited to join us. Each episode is designed to support you not just in how you live, but in how you feel in your body, your relationships, and your life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Today, I want to start with a different way of thinking about health. When we talk about longevity, the conversation usually turns to food, movement, supplements, or medical care, especially if you're talking to me. All important, but the research coming out of long-lived communities tells us something quieter and maybe more radical. The places we gather, the roles we play, the ways we stay woven into one another's lives. When people think about blue zones, they often jump to diet or walking or beans. But some of the most powerful insights are social. Purpose doesn't retire, community roles expand, meaning is layered, not replaced. Vitality comes from contribution, not consumption. Belonging is a health intervention. My guest today, my friend Pat Rudebusch, models this in a way that feels both grounded and alive. She began her career in public media with PBS. She later served on the Orinda Union School District Board, wrote for the Orinda News, volunteered with the Marine Mammal Center, and eventually purchased the local bookstore, Orinda Books, where she had already worked for years when the longtime owners decided to sell. She was also Citizen of the Year, and I was lucky to attend that ceremony. She didn't opt out of relevance. She stepped into it more deeply. On any given day, and I hear even as recently as this morning, you can find Pat somewhere around town, at the community center, at a local coffee shop, or at the bookstore that she now stewards. She is part of the daily rhythm of her community, and I'm glad to be part of that too. Pat's work, school board service, journalism, volunteering, bookstore ownership, reflects a life where meaning is layered and not replaced. That's a critical message for women navigating post-career identity. This is a conversation about community as medicine, about why women who stay engaged matter deeply, and about how longevity isn't an individual project, it's collective. I'm really glad you're here for this one. Joining me today, it's a little different, not sitting right next to you while we're talking, but you look really close here right now.
Yeah, thank you. Boy, that was beautiful, Devora. You should be my PR agent.
Okay, we can discuss that too.
Okay.
So you've moved from PBS to school board service, to journalism, to volunteering, to book selling. And when you
Yes.
look across those chapters, what thread can you see and feel that connects all those things?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is education. PBS public television is education based. I mean, education in the broad sense. So education, PBS, the school board, even opening a bookstore, just finding ways for people to broaden their minds, broaden their experiences.
Was there an early moment in your life when you realized that being engaged in community was a very important value that you wanted to enact?
That is a really good question. And I don't think there was one point in my life that I could point to, but I think it's something that I learned through experience. So, for example, I worked at PBS for a number of years, loved that job. We moved out to California. I was still doing consulting for them and for some other organizations. And I realized then I don't like being a consultant. I like being involved day to day. I think in hindsight, that was one of the indicators that, in fact, I need to be enmeshed in something and not working on my own, popping in, popping out.
Can you talk a bit about how your work in at PBS with the public media shaped the way that you started to learn and think about institutions and public trust?
So I said I loved my job at PBS. And I loved the culture in the office. I loved the fact that this was a national organization that was not focused on the bottom line, but focused on delivering quality and meaning. That was a very important place for me to be. I just learned a lot from how the operation ran. One of the things I remember they had in the PBS mission statement, one of the maybe 4 or 5 points they made was to make PBS a good place to work. When I first read that, I'm like, yeah, doesn't everybody want to make a good place to work? They lived it. They lived it. And I saw that in so many ways in how they treated employees, how they treated vendors, how they treated the member stations. There was a sense of not, they weren't profit motivated. They were motivated by mission. Yeah. So,
That
I,
really laid a great foundation for you professionally.
yes, it did. It did. Yeah. Yeah.
So then moving forward, when you served on the school board here in the
Mhm.
town that we live, how did your understanding of responsibility begin to evolve?
I think our friend Steve had said this once. Nobody wakes up in the morning saying that, oh, yes, I want to be on the school board or I want to be on the city council. Maybe somebody does, but you gotta, you work your way into it and people recruit you, if you will. Before I say yes to anything, I have to, first of all, believe in what it is and think that I have something to offer. For the school board, yeah, I think that I had things to offer. And I tried to always really be focused on that and not that my focus get diverted. So one of the things that you learn when you're in that position is that most parents, and this is not right or wrong, they want to know what's in it for my kid, right? And I know people that have expressed interest in being in that type of position. What can I do for my kid? It's not about your child. It's about all children, right? It's about the teachers. It's about the support staff. You really have to take in a more holistic view of what the schools are doing. And that was something that I think came naturally to me, but I became aware of it when I would hear other people wanting their focus was their child. Now, of course, I have 2 children and my focus was them too, but I wasn't making decisions based on what my kids need. I was making decisions based on what is the best for all kids. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I think not everybody's like that. That's one of the things that's so special about you. Not only did you care just about your own children, but you really deeply care about your community and putting yourself in a position. It's one thing to be in a job and all the wonderful things about working at an institution like PBS that you described, but to decide to immerse yourself in the political arena where
Yeah.
you become quite vulnerable to a lot of different
Yeah.
phenomena.
Yes.
But besides caring about the education and the community and the children and all those different aspects that you talked about, you really have to believe that you're going to make a difference because otherwise, why would you do it?
Yeah. Yes.
And because I know you so well, you probably don't do this. Maybe you do, but you probably don't wake up every day and think, how can I make a difference? But
No.
I think that is you when I ask you about those common threads that connect your chapters of
Mhm.
life,
Yeah.
I see that as a common thread, like different ways that you're making a difference in the communities that you live in. So let's move on to the Orinda news.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when you write for a local newspaper like that,
Yeah.
how does your view change about your community and what's going on around you and your community and your neighbors, basically?
Yeah. And I've got to think about that for a minute because I don't think that I started writing for the Orinda News with any particular goal in mind other than I like to write. What I quickly learned is that everything is politics, right? Everything's political. And it doesn't matter if it's the new restaurant that's opening in town or the new stop sign, everybody has an opinion. And whether you agree with that opinion or not, if you're going to do the job right, you have to at least honor that opinion. And you can be total disagreement, but you have to honor that opinion. Okay. And find a way to incorporate various viewpoints into a story. But I want to quickly say one of my pet peeves is when journalists say we have to give equal time. And so they'll quote somebody who's very knowledgeable about the subject, and then they'll quote somebody who is just against it because they're against everything. And that's when I really became aware of the fact that it's easy to be opinionated, it's harder to be informed. And so what you want to do is try to pull out those informed opinions rather than the knee-jerk opinions. So,
Wisdom. You could have stepped away from formal career chapters and I think you've always been in these professional spaces. Some of them have been paid and some of them have been unpaid. Take us now to your journey, your story with Orinda Books.
yeah. That's an interesting one too, because I think that it's not that I never had a life plan. I'm going to do this and this and this. I've always just been open to opportunities. And if it's something that resonates with me, then I'll pursue it. So the Orinda Books, I started working there because Maria, the previous owner, I was a customer. I got a phone call one day from her and she was looking to hire someone. And I'll never forget this. She said, so I was thinking about you, Pat, because you read a lot and you like people and you're chatty. I'm like, okay, yeah, those are all true. And it was at a point in time where both my kids were in college and I'm an empty nester-ish. And I just really felt like I need to be doing something else. And that was a really good fit. It fell into my lap. And then when Maria decided to move and she was selling the bookstore, that was a harder decision because it's a big responsibility. But one of the things that resonated with me was when one of my daughters said, you have to buy it. It's my childhood bookstore. And that totally surprised me. But in that moment, I realized that it's not just a place of commerce, it's a place that holds meaning for people. And that was one of the contributing factors to me doing that.
Perfect transition. We're very lucky in our town to have a bookstore because not all towns do.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, going back to the blue zones concepts,
Yes.
there's something that sociologists call a third space.
Yeah.
Common community space. It's not home. It's not work, although for you it is. But somewhere where people gather voluntarily, where conversation naturally happens, and belonging doesn't really require a membership or status.
Yeah.
And those kind of spaces are very central to long-lived communities. They play an important role. Tell us how you see Orinda Books as part of that phenomena?
I don't know that I saw that until it was brought to my attention. And I don't think a week goes by that somebody doesn't either thank me for having the bookstore or tell me how valuable it is in their lives. And when I first started hearing this, I was a little puzzled because I think you've got a lot going on in your life. But then I started to realize as people got older, especially as their kids left home, a lot of their social networks started to fray. And being able to join a book club, being able to come and hear an author speak, that became a way to re-engage socially. And that surprised me. I think that surprised me because I've always been a social person. I did not expect to find that this store, this place was important to so many different people. I can't ignore it. I hear it weekly. That's really one of the things that keeps me going because you're not making any money, but you have to do it out of love and feeling that you are contributing. And so, in this small way, I'm contributing to the community.
I think that it goes so far beyond what you're describing too, because it's a place of connection, obviously.
Mm.
You deepen opportunity for our community in so many ways. The opportunity to be physically present around books. I know that you feature even local artists.
Yeah.
You feature different authors, and you've even expanded to more than just authors in terms of speaking engagements. And you also have connection with the broader community library foundations
Yes. Yeah.
and connect with them. I like to really discuss things in a positive way, but it would be painful to think, what would our town look like without Orinda Books?
No, I think it would be a loss. And I've only come to realize that since owning it because there is not a lot going on in our town. You read about shopping centers closing and retail struggling. I think that's a real problem because going out, seeing other people, meeting other people, interacting with a barista, interacting with the person at the shoe store, all of that feeds into our sense of community, whether we realize it at the time or not. So, especially in a small town like this, the loss of something like Orinda Books would be, on the one hand, you could say there are other bookstores, there are other ways of getting books, but that's not the sole purpose of the store. The sole purpose of the store is to create that sense of not just community, but the opportunity just to browse and to be open, in this case, to books, but to be open to things that you didn't even know that you might be interested in until you see it. So, yeah, I think it would be a loss. I really do.
So you said you mentioned there's not a lot going on around here. Well, we live in a small town. There's plenty of small towns around, and it's harder to visibly see a lot of activity,
Yeah.
especially at certain points during the year. But the truth is, and I know you would agree with this, there's actually quite a lot going on in people's lives.
Yeah.
I think the opportunity for these third spaces is when you can connect with other people
Yeah.
and not just online and share more about what's going on in each other's lives and even build more opportunities
Yeah.
for common activities together. And I just want to encourage you to think really about your business, you being a local bookseller and hosting this space for community is actually a health intervention for our community.
Yeah. 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 I would agree. And again, this is something that surprised me, but there are a lot of lonely people out there, even in a town that, like ours, which we're close to San Francisco, we've got a lot around us, and yet people are still lonely because it's not always, well, for all sorts of reasons. And
Mhm.
being able to, whether it's meeting at a coffee shop, whether it's meeting at a local book club at the bookstore, whether it's just coming to hear an author, it gives people a reason to go out and to make connections. One of the things with so I run a book club at the bookstore, and it has grown. I think there were 6 people to start with, and now they're like 25, 30 people that come. And they don't want to break the group up. They want to keep it big, and that's big for a book club. What I've seen happen over the years is that after the book club, they all go next door to have lunch together. Friendships are forming, and that happened organically. I did not orchestrate that, but I provided the opportunity for it to take seed.
So you're giving a great example of how you cultivate connection.
Yeah.
This is one of the benefits of getting out in your community. If not getting to know people, at least having familiarity.
Yeah.
You can walk into Orinda Books. It's a warm and friendly place. It's somewhere where someone's going to greet you. You can make a connection there if you want to. Like you said, loneliness is an epidemic right now. It is a health risk.
Yeah.
And having spaces in our communities that we live in where we can literally be welcomed
Yeah.
and know that we're going to create connection is
Yeah.
so important. It's important for our health, and it's important for longevity.
Yeah.
When
No,
we live in a
I totally
community
agree.
that we live in a community that's very that values all the generations, because across the street from the center that your bookstore's in is senior living.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nursery school and a
Right.
community park.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up the senior living community, because I think a number of the people who live there are among the loneliest. And yeah, just the fact that they could just come across the street and feel connected, even though they're in this community, they're in these apartments that are full of seniors. Well, they don't want to just be around a bunch of seniors. They want to see the little kids finding a new book. They want to see somebody who's in their 30s. And the fact that we can bring different generations together, I think, is beneficial for all of them.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I was lucky when I was growing up in Los Angeles. I used to be involved in a lot of different philanthropy groups. And one of the things we did during high school was we had an ongoing relationship with a senior living community. And we really developed deep friendships with these elders.
Yeah.
And it was important in both directions. I just retired from working at the high school for 25 years, and I so often felt like that would be so beneficial for our community if we could have some type of formal program that paired up seniors who have so much to offer
Yeah.
with the high school kids who could use so much more support than they have in their lives, especially not digital.
Yeah. I was reminded of one of the more touching moments since I bought the store. It's a little bit of a sad story, but I had a customer, one of my favorite customers. I won't give her name because maybe I shouldn't. And she was an elderly woman, always impeccably dressed, so polite. I always loved when she would come into the store because she just had this wonderful, grounded spirit to her. Well, she passed away, and her son came in. I'd never met her son. He doesn't live in the area, but he came in after his mother died. She said, "My mom wanted to make sure that I told you that she had passed away because she knew that you might be wondering where she was." And I thought, man, that just touched me in such a way, because she was more than a customer and I was more than a bookseller, even though those were our role. But there was an invisible bond that also formed. And the fact that among the last things she's thinking about in her final days was to make sure that I knew. And I thought, gosh, that was like worth everything. It was worth
That's
so
beautiful.
much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it validates my feeling about when you know how much I love to walk in
Yeah.
all different places. And
Yeah.
I'm friendly. I love greeting people. I love looking people in the eyes and
Yeah.
smiling and saying, hi, I don't need to know them. I don't need to say anything else.
Yeah.
But that connection is actually so important to me that when I pass someone and I can't make eye contact, I notice that.
Yeah. 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 I do too. This is slightly off topic, but you remind me. So I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and I don't know if that means much, but I will say that it does, because I think Midwesterners are pretty open and friendly for the most part. My daughters used to always like give me a hard time. Why do you say hi to people? You don't even know them. Why are you saying hi? Well, maybe about 5 years ago or so, I was in Chicago with my then in graduate school daughter, and we're walking down the street. And when she looks at me, she goes, "Now I know you're why the way you are." And I'm like, "Oh, now what? Now what did I do wrong?" She said, "Everybody here is friendly. Everybody looks and says hi when they pass you." Now, that's not 100% true, but I realized, yeah, I grew up in a place and or time when that was the natural thing to do. And now everybody, especially my daughter's ages, they've got the ear pods in, staring at their phone, and you don't have that same just natural acknowledging that there's another person and on the sidewalk with you.
It's huge because it affects our sense of connection. It affects our sense of loneliness, because that's a great example of how you can live in the busiest city in the world and be out all day long in the midst of literally thousands of people and be really lonely because nobody looks at you, nobody interacts with you. And just these random acts of gazing at someone and making a connection, acknowledging them, smiling.
Yeah.
Even when we were in COVID and we were wearing masks, you learned that you could smile with your eyes. We were always smiling with our eyes, but with the masks, we couldn't see our mouths. So we had to make a conscious effort to smile with our eyes so you could greet people.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And these are things that you and I take for granted because that's the way we are. Right? But it isn't until somebody points it out that you realize, oh, yeah, I guess that is important.
You are one of the most familiar faces around our town. How do you think visibility affects responsibility?
Well, definitely it does, right? It's easy to be off on the sides and you can do whatever you want. But I would to turn that around a little bit. And I think that being a responsible person, being a kind person, makes it easier to be visible because you're not hiding anything, right? And being open. Now, I'm not going to say that maybe I've got moments where I'm be quite shy and quite introverted. Don't get me wrong. But tapping into just this innate sense that I'm an open, honest, caring person. Now, not that I think this daily, but I think that feeds the way I go through life. And so the fact that I'm very visible, I think I'm visible because I am open and caring and committed to making things better. That makes sense.
And those of us who get to see you often are truly fortunate and blessed because of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So, Pat, you're definitely a leader in our community. And I don't think we've talked about this specifically, but I have to say inherently, I know this about you is that you're also feminist.
Yes. Yes.
So, what would you say that women bring to community leadership that may not always be formally recognized?
Oh, that's easy. I think that women bring a sensibility for caretaking. Okay. Women, are, at least of my generation, they are brought up to be the caretakers, which is something that society often dismisses or diminishes. But you realize that without the caretakers, however you want to define that, how broadly you want to define that, without the caretakers, you don't really have a community. Somebody has to be there. Somebody has to show up. Let's put it that way. And the caretakers show up. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Women are caretakers. Women are, I'm grand generalities. Women are perhaps more attuned to the needs of others, and others could be an individual, it could be the community, it could be a school, but I think they're more in tune to that.
What have you seen in terms of female leadership? What kind of benefits have you seen with women stepping into leadership roles when they could have not, or they could have stepped back? So,
Yeah.
what becomes possible in a community when women step forward into leadership positions?
I think things get done. Things get done. Not to dismiss the contributions of men, but oftentimes when a man steps into a leadership position, it is secondary to his career, right? He's got this career and this is what he does, but this is what he does on the side. Not that you can be a woman very much so, have a career, but I think what they bring to the leadership, the volunteer experience, is a sensibility and awareness of needing to address more than just the bottom line, of needing to address the needs of others. I hesitate because I'm not trying to say that men can't or don't do that, but I think that women bring that very human connection to the table, perhaps more often or in a way that many men don't.
What you're saying resonates with me as a mother, as a nurse.
Yeah.
I think you're describing a holistic perspective.
Mhm.
I also think that without mentioning it, you're describing emotional labor that women that we have on our plate that's not in writing, but is a big part of what we do.
Yeah.
It's not in our job description, but it
Yeah.
sure takes a lot of time and
Yeah.
energy, both physically and emotionally and mentally.
Yeah. 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 I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So, going towards women in our age group, 50 and above, for as long as possible. Let's see.
Yeah.
If someone no longer has a formal job or title, how would you encourage them to recognize their value without
Yeah.
having the external validation that they may have been used to, or even depended on in the past?
For me, at least, the best way to do that is to take those skills you have acquired throughout your professional life and find a way to plug into something that you really care about and bring those skills to that organization, that community. Yeah.
I think that's a really big part of the transition for women, either if they have had formal careers that they're
Yeah.
pulling back from or transitioning from,
Mm.
or they were in unpaid volunteer positions while they were raising their family. And then they find themselves in their 50s, 60s, 70s and want or are feeling like they want a role, they want a place to fit in, and it's challenging for them. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions for women that might find themselves in those kind of spaces and looking for ways to connect and
Yeah.
find purpose?
I would say go for it. Just go for it. And you don't have to go for it in a big way. You don't have to say, I'm going to be president of the school board. I didn't start out that way. I started out thinking, okay, I've got these skills to offer and I can plug them in here, I can plug them in there. But I never set out to be a leader. Right? And maybe that's one of the challenges women have to overcome. I think if you, again, find something that feeds your soul. You mentioned the Marine Mammal Center, and I volunteered there for 9 years. I would still be, but traffic was getting the best of
Yeah,
me
that's about
anyway.
an hour from where we live. So
Yeah,
that was a big
yeah, you're right.
commitment.
And then, but during rush hour, it was taking me over 2 hours to get home. I don't have a degree or any background in veterinary medicine. Neither did most of the people that I was volunteering with. But yet we all had something to give. That was the big thing was caring for other creatures on this planet, caring for the environment. The skills that you acquire along the way make you, they just, you build these skills. Had I ever given subcutaneous fluid to a seal before? Oh, no. But you learn how to do that. In my case, in this case, in a very supportive environment of people who were all working towards a same goal, bigger than just that one seal. Of course, a seal pup is adorable, so I wouldn't do it. And I would go there and I would think it was some of the most impactful hours, days of my week. And I realized it was because I was with like-minded people, right? And so it wasn't everybody complaining or not that I don't complain, I can complain about anything, but they were committed to the environment. They were committed to wildlife, committed to making it better, making the world better. And I just get so jazzed being around like-minded people. So I say that because if you are looking to find a way to stay connected, don't disqualify yourself because you think you don't have enough to offer. If you have that passion or that interest, you're partway there. And you can learn how to give seals those subcutaneous fluids. It's being with your tribe. Find your tribe and then go from there.
It's an interesting concept using the word tribe or what feeds your soul and passion, because again, at this time in our lives, we're coming off of seeing the same people for maybe 20 years because we saw the same group of parents of our kids, or we worked with the same people. And then it could be all of a sudden if you retire like I did, or just gradually as your kids start to launch and move away, you don't have that same tribe anymore. You might still be connected to them, but you actually don't have the same activities that are connecting you and spaces. That can feel unsettling for a lot of women.
Yeah.
It can also feel liberating for some of us.
Yeah.
Probably both.
Mhm.
And I think it's a great opportunity to think, what would I like to try right now that I wasn't able to before? And even if you can't figure out, oh, I don't know what my passion is, or I don't know what I'm interested in every community, there is always so much need for assistance. We could just come up with such a long list within a short period of time. But I know in our community, there's the program where you can drive seniors around town,
I was thinking
right?
about that.
And okay, if you know how to drive and you have some time, it might just be as little as an hour a week.
Yeah.
You get to help out by driving some seniors around. You get to meet people.
Yeah.
You get to connect with them. It's not about, oh, I can volunteer because I can drive. It's where can you find connection?
Yeah. Yeah.
And things evolve from that. As you say, you never know what's going to evolve from one opportunity to the next.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think that one of the disadvantages of our time is that we move around a lot. I'm not from the Bay Area. You're not from the Bay Area. And you read about declining engagement with religion, for instance. And that's one of the blue zone things that really surprised me. That was a critical part of why people have this longevity in these blue zones. I was the first person in my family to leave Chicago. They were there since the 1850s. It was like unheard of. Like, Patty, you're leaving. You can't leave. And I did. And now if you look at my family, they're all over the country. So there's no longer could say, oh, do you go back off? Actually, I don't have any family living with anymore. So we've dispersed. We have lost the connections that traditionally may have come through churches or synagogues, temples, whatever. We've lost that. So much of our connections had been through our professional life, but then when you retire, you lose that. So I think that just points to the fact that we need to work at building these things. We don't have that natural colliding with people the same age. We have to go out there and look for it.
So I'm just throwing this idea that's just come to mind as you're saying all this. I was one of the few women I know who didn't join a book club.
Yeah.
I did go initially to a few meetings of one particular book club that's still in existence.
Yeah.
It was the year 2000, and I remember that because that was the year I started my 5-year grad school program when I had 3 little kids at home and I was still working part-time. And, well, I started the book club. I was like, this is too much. I have too much on my plate. I can't do it. But maybe at this point in life is a nice opportunity for women to join a book club.
Join a book club. One of the women that I've come to know in my book club at the store, she's an amazing knitter. Her husband's on the board of Orinda Village, which the best I could understand, it's an organist, it's a nonprofit that tries to connect people in ways that allows them to age in place, but they provide social, doing everything that you're talking about that we need to do, reach out from community. Anyway, she wanted to start a knitting group because she's a fabulous knitter. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Now I knit, I'm not a fabulous knitter. And she did this a couple times and she said, oh, like only 1 or 2 people came. And she wasn't getting that cohesion of a group. And so she said, "Pat, will you come just so we'll have 3 people?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll come." And then before you know it, not that I was the tipping point, but there is a tipping point at which, oh, this is a group. And now there are 6 or 7 or 8 people. I don't even have to go anymore if I don't want to. But these things take time to gain traction, but they will.
I don't know if you met at a knitting store. I go to New York
Yeah.
at least once a year. Now I'm going more because I have more family there. There was a knitting store in the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
I used to go there whenever I was in New York. They had this big, giant, like dining room table, and the women would all be knitting around there. And the employees and the owner would be helping people.
Yeah.
Every time I went there, I felt like I was coming back home to this group of women that I recognized.
Yeah.
And after a while, they started to recognize me. But unfortunately, it's tough for small retailers like that to stay in business. I wish the seniors could come into the high school. And I always thought it would be great to have a knitting club because it's just physically a wonderful neuroregulation practice.
Yeah. When I was on the school board, one of the middle school teachers wanted to start a lunchtime knitting club and asked if I would do this. I said, yeah, sure. That'd be fun. I was surprised. There were more boys than girls who came to this, and they loved it because it was a way to just relax. And, now, what do you see? You see like Tom Daly, the Olympic gold medalist diver. He knits at the side of the pool. Yeah, that's another sense of community, right? I go into a lot of yarn stores when I travel, and I have yet to find one that doesn't have that big community table where anybody can just come and sit and knit. You don't have to be good, right? You don't have to be good. You can just knit straight pieces, and you are engaging in a community and doing something very relaxing for yourself. Yeah.
That's one of the things I do when I travel. A lot of the time is I intentionally find a knitting store and I buy some yarn from the knitting store so that can become one of my souvenirs. You can knit beautiful scarves if you buy a beautiful skein of yarn.
Oh, yeah. It's a creative outlet.
So, Pat, what opportunities deserve your commitment, and how do you make that decision about what kind of opportunities you want to be involved in now? What boundaries do you develop so that you can protect your energy physically and emotionally? Because we don't have as much energy as we had before. So we're going to be more selective
You do.
about what we're going to decide to be involved in.
That is a really good question because it's easy to say, oh, they want me? Okay, I'll do it. For me, I have to, first of all, really believe in what that organization is doing. But that's not enough. I have to say, okay, is this one of the things, is this organization one of my top priorities? And there are a lot of good organizations out there, and I believe in them and I contribute money to them, but they are not one of my top priorities. If I'm going to commit to something at this age, this stage of my life, I should say, it has to be a top priority that feeds my soul. That sounds kind of selfish. I don't think it is. I think that it's being honest. Because I can be on all sorts of boards. And unless I'm bringing a passion to it, and that passion comes from it feeding my soul, that I'm not really doing anybody any favors. So,
I think you're talking about alignment.
yes.
You need that alignment so that
Yeah.
it makes sense for you.
Yeah.
It holds deep meaning, and that you feel that your commitment, your time, your energy is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Worth it not just to the organization, but to myself, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That has become clearer to me as I've become more experienced in life.
For me, knowing you and having this very rich discussion with you, the concept and word that stands out to me is legacy. I'd like to invite you to share, what does legacy mean to you?
Yeah. That is something we don't often think of. But you read the questions, what do you want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered for obviously being a good mother. At the end of the day, I hope people will look back and say she was kind. I want kindness to be my legacy.
Definitely, that's what people think of you, but they think of a whole lot more other wonderful things too.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So I never let anybody leave before they answer my question. What does sexy mean to you right now, especially at this stage of life?
I think sexy means being comfortable in your body, being comfortable in who you are, being vital, and taking all that you've learned throughout your life and continuing to go with it. So it's not about what you wear, it's not about the latest fashions. It's about being a vital and vibrant person.
A lot of us are using the same way to define what sexy means to us. I am choosing vital, important women to speak to and to interview when you say feeling comfortable in your own skin, because a lot of times when you're younger, even just growing up, it's perceived as an externally validated construct. And for us right now at our age, in our age groups, and for decades to come, we have the opportunity to really choose with excitement and intention and purpose how we want to feel, how we want to act, what we want to be involved in. And to me, that's what sexy is too.
Oh, absolutely. You are right.
Well, I remember on your 60th birthday, we had a wonderful day of celebrating together, going on a hike in Marin.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
gosh, maybe we can plan something like that for your 70th.
Maybe we can. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like
Because
that.
this community really is for women 50 and above, no limits after that.
When I turned 50, and I have a very good friend who also turned 50 at the same time, and a lot of my friends are turning 50. They go, "Oh, I'm 50. Oh, I'm getting old. I'm getting old." And I said, "No, I'm not giving up." I enlisted my friend to walk the Portland Marathon. I'm not running a marathon. I never have run a marathon, but I just needed to set that physical challenge because I wasn't going to give in to the, oh, I'm too old. And we did it. By golly, we did it.
Did you do it all at one time?
Yeah. Yeah. So the Portland Marathon is in October. I chose that mainly because it's been dubbed the most walker friendly marathon in the country. And Portland's not that far from where we live. I knew I didn't want to run a marathon. I never wanted to run a marathon, but I love to walk and hike like you do. And I thought, okay, we're going to do this. We are not going to say, I'm too old. And we didn't. And it was great. It was great.
I never thought about that, about doing that. So I'm so glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. And that's another example of thinking outside the box and not having to fit into everybody's description of what something's supposed to be.
I really encourage anybody who thinks, oh gosh, I'm this age now, walk the Portland Marathon. You can do it. If you're walking, you're not trying to go for any record. It's very supportive.
And I bet you felt great doing it.
Yeah.
Right now, I think is so important for us to choose to do things that we feel great about and that make us feel great.
Yep. And the thing was, we had to train, right? We don't just wake up one morning and say, okay, let's fly to Portland and walk 26.2 miles. We trained for it. And I think that also deepened our friendship because we were getting together several times a week to walk increasingly longer distances. So yeah, it's amazing where little things that you can do that will build friendship, it will build connection. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Okay.
What stands out about Pat isn't nostalgia, although she shared a lot of nostalgia with us. What stands out about Pat is momentum. Across public service, writing, volunteering, and bookselling, she keeps bringing the same qualities forward: intellectual curiosity, civic responsibility, cultural preservation, and the willingness to show up consistently for a place and for people. She didn't build something flashy for attention. She maintains something valuable so others can gather. That kind of work often goes unnoticed. It's relational. It's steady. And like we said, it's often done by women. And it's essential infrastructure. Health isn't just physical, it's social. Longevity isn't an individual pursuit, it's collective.
Yeah.
Just like you described your walking marathon. When women remain engaged, when they carry experience forward instead of stepping back, they create continuity in communities that are constantly changing. This is the work I care about, helping women recognize that their engagement, their wisdom, their continued presence in community isn't optional or decorative. It's foundational. Wisdom is sexy. Stewardship is sexy. Showing up is sexy. Pat reminds us that vitality deepens when we contribute. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Before we wrap up, I want to let you know about a free workshop I'm offering called the 5-Minute Reality Check for women 50 and above. It's a simple but eye-opening way to look at a few of the habits that matter most for healthy aging. Things like strength, fiber, sleep, and alcohol. And to notice where you may be doing well and where there may be room to support yourself more intentionally. If that sounds helpful, I'd love to have you join me on Sunday, March 22nd. You'll find a link at slant2plants.com/realitycheck and in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. If today's conversation resonated with you, I invite you to take the next gentle step by downloading the Sexy in Your 60s Starter Guide, a free resource designed to help you reflect on what supports your energy, vitality, and sense of connection in this season of life. You'll find it linked in the show notes or at slant2plants.com/starter-guide. You can also explore more of my work, including health coaching, plant-forward nutrition, and resources for vibrant living at slant2plants.com. And for the ultimate transformation, join the Sexy in Your 60s coaching experience at sexyinyour60s.com. If this episode spoke to you, please consider following the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone who might need it right now. That's how these conversations continue to grow. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay curious, and stay boldly, beautifully sexy, exactly as you are.